I can say that we are planning to prosecute Mr. Julius Malema on charges of corruption and fraud. But Advocate Nel will be able to give you all the details in that regard. All I can say, you know, if somebody portrays themselves as somebody that's fighting for the poor, when such a person, like in the case of Mr. Malema, goes ahead and steals state money or taxpayers' money, money that should benefit the poor, we believe such a person should be held accountable, and that is why we are going ahead with this case. I'm just going to move the microphones.
Good morning from our side. I would like to discuss the detail about the matter that's commonly referred to as the on-point matter. A very interesting aspect that very few people know is that Mr. Kriel, sitting next to me, is in fact a complainant in that particular matter. Mr. Kriel laid a charge on the 24th of July 2011 that led to the later prosecution of Mr. Malema and his co-accused. A prosecutor was assigned to the matter and drafted the indictment. Now, the indictment consists of the following charges. There were 2 racketeering charges, 5 corruption charges, 4 fraud charges, and 40 counts of the contravention of Section 6A, B, and C of the Prevention of the Organized Crime Act. Now, this particular matter, after the accused appeared, was struck off the roll on the 4th of August 2015 because one of the accused, Mr. Dichabe, was ill and he could not stand trial. The understanding at the time, like with all these kind of matters where it's struck off the roll because somebody cannot stand trial, was that the NPA would monitor the matter and ensure that the matter is enrolled again. What we did is we only did a superficial search of information that's currently in the public domain, and that portrayed what appears to be a healthy Mr. Dichabe, having recovered fully from his illness. Social media photographs depict active social gatherings, family holidays, business transactions, purchase of high-powered, expensive sports cars, participation in cycling events, and remarkably, Mr. Dichabe chose to depict a picture of him and President Ramaphosa as his current, as we speak, picture on Twitter, profile picture on Twitter. So what we did is, on the 19th of March, we submitted a written inquiry to establish if and when the NPA intend to re-enroll the matter. We shared with them information we received, and that is that the matter was taken away from the prosecutor that was assigned to the matter, and it was handed over to the Priority Crimes Litigation Unit. Mr. Pretorius responded to us. Mr. Pretorius indicated that the NPA would indicate on or before August 2018 whether or not the PCLU and or the NPA would prosecute. The letter would form part of your pack, and I would just like to read paragraph 4. Paragraph 4, Mr. Pistorius indicated the PCLU is presently considering the matter with a view to decide whether or not to reinstitute charges. Now, we also asked the question from the NPA why it was referred to the PCLU, the Priority Crimes Litigation Unit, and Mr. Pretorius responded saying that the National Director has a discretion to allocate cases to the PCLU. He also implied that the complexity of the matter and the fact that it has both elements of organized crime and commercial crime caused the National Director to transfer the matter to the PCLU. We all know that the commercial matters and organized crime are not matters ordinarily dealt with by the PCLU and does not form part of their mandate. We find the reasons given by the NPA peculiar, because what we know is a prosecutor, a very senior prosecutor in the NPA, somebody that I know, somebody from the Special Commercial Crimes Unit, was allocated the matter. He drafted the charge sheet. He indicated to court in August when they appeared that the matter was court ready. He indicated that the state was ready to proceed. I infer from the readiness of the state that he consulted with witnesses. It's very interesting to think why, or peculiar to think why the NPA would then decide to move the matter away from the prosecutor that dealt with the matter, drafted the indictment, and hand it over to the PCLU for the PCLU to consider afresh whether or not to reinstate charges. We find it peculiar, as the only obstacle at the time had been the fact that Mr. Dechaba was not ready or well enough to proceed with trial. We hope that paragraph 4 of this particular letter does not indicate the fact that the PCLU would now review the decision taken by the Special Commercial Crimes Unit. It is, however, interesting to observe that this particular unit at the NPA have been responsible for the charges against Minister Gordhan, the charges against Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, the prosecution of Mr. McBride and members of IPIT, and the charges against the rogue unit, all of which resort outside of the mandate of the PCLU. Another very interesting matter that I think is in the public domain, that I would just like to reiterate, is that we know that the successful asset forfeiture confiscation order was obtained against the farm scale crawl that was purchased by Mr. Malema on the information we have with the proceeds of this fraudulent scheme. The application for the confiscation of the farm was not opposed by anyone, and the farm was then sold in auction for 2.4 million rand. It is also peculiar that somebody would just abandon the farm or abandon the proceeds of a farm that was lawfully purchased. So what we're now doing is although we find it strange that the PCLU will need 4 months to decide to re-enroll a matter where the only obstacle is the fact that one accused was not available to proceed, but we will allow Mr. Pretorius to make his decision. We hope it's not on but before, and if not, we will certainly prosecute this matter privately. We think it's an excellent matter to develop the law, to give society an opportunity to deal with corruption and fraud of that scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Advocate Nel. Just shortly from my side, I think if you search the internet, you'll get a lot of information with regard to On Point. But just a short overview, On Point is a company where Julius Malema's Ratanang Family Trust, of whom he's the sole trustee, has shares or 50% in that On Point company. On Point was appointed by the Limpopo Department of Roads to help them, assist them with their work. Part of the job On Point had to do was to give advice on tenders that were given to people. And as we know, the companies that got tenders through this process then paid back money into the account of On Point. So that is corruption, and that is something that we believe is a strong case to prosecute. And it's actually ludicrous that the National Prosecuting Authority it's now 2 years and 8 months since the case was scrapped in the Polokwane High Court, why it's not going ahead, and that's why we believe it's time that we intervene and make sure that Julius Malema is brought to book and that nobody is above the law. Even if Mr. Malema thinks he's above the law, he's not above the law, and we will make sure that he is held accountable. Is there any questions? Sir.
Ngizolilwela Izwela Ngizolilwela Izwela Ngizolilwela bo Izwela yo Izwela Izwela me Izwela me